younger person who still has 2 or 3 decades to go, yes, you can venture more with some high risk instruments. You get my point. Compared to
Yeah.
someone that has less than 10 years thereabouts, for that baby boomer, you have to really be very. You have to manage your risk. You have to monitor your risk. We advise that you even play with low risk instruments. You don't need to touch the very volatile ones because of age, because of time. I recall having to advise a woman who was just about 2 years to retirement, and really she had put her fund in some investment that gone south, and but basically she had just 2 years basically, and we just needed to come up with a plan and a plan, just to salvage what we
I know
could.
that many believers, many religious believers, right, do not believe in emergency funds. But when COVID came, they now got an understanding of what it meant to have emergency funds. You're super duper welcome. I think the first time I even got serious about what we're about to discuss was when you spoke about it. Before now, I hadn't really thought about it. I guess, and I think many people fall into that category too, where they really do not think about retirement. They just feel what will be, and let me enjoy my life, right? So that's what influenced this episode of Diary of a Young Father, where we can discuss things related to retirement. So I'll just get right into the questions that I have, and Mr. Biodun will answer all the questions, right? And provide insights, talk about examples, and just guide us. So we're going to be talking from the standpoint of Gen Zs to millennials to even baby boomers, right? So quickly, when should someone realistically start planning for retirement? And what should the first step be like? So the way I would like you to answer this from the perspective of baby boomers, then millennials, and then Gen Zs.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. It's so good to be here. Thanks for having me. Diary of a Young Father. I follow the series, and I think it's really inspiring. Basically, yes. Thank you so much. Now to our discussion. Basically, so when is the best time? I think the best time is now. Basically, I mean, just now. And there's this saying around, whenever you wake up in your morning. So even it really doesn't matter how long, how close, how close you are to retirement. I think the best time is just now. And well, in this part of the world, retirement age is between the ages of 55 to 60. Basically, when you will not be able to be involved in active day-to-day work. So the best time is now, because, and the earlier, the younger you are, the better. So for the Gen Zs, I congratulate you. This is the best time to start. Now for the baby boomers, it's unfortunate time is not so much on your side, but I think it's just better to start now than ever. I recall having to advise a woman who was just about 2 years to retirement, and really she had put her funds in some investment that gone south, and but basically she had just 2 years basically, and we just needed to come up with a plan and a plan, just to salvage what we could do. But for the younger person, you have a longer time, because the longer the better. And I like to say that you should start with a picture in mind. So what's the picture that you have for that 60-year-old you? What's that picture of that person you have of a 60-year-old you? And once you have that clearly written down, on paper, then you now begin to work towards it. Well, it starts with a picture, it starts with an objective, it starts with a vision. You need to see that person. And another easy way to do that is to look around you for someone who has attained that retirement age, and you want to be like, basically, someone who has attained that 60-year-old mark, and you like their lifestyle, you like, how they prepare themselves, how they live in their retirement years, and that will just help you to craft that picture or craft that vision for who you really want to be at that age, basically. So it starts with the picture,
Yeah.
it starts with the vision, then you now begin to work towards that picture, and looking at the principle of compounding interest. It leverages a lot on time. So and that is why, for the guy that is younger, that is in his 20s, don't think you have a lot of time. It just gives you some 30 years to work and plan towards that time. And that's just a pretty good time, to be very exact and be very focused on who you want to be at 60 years.
Oh, fantastic. The concept of the compound interest really blew my mind. I think it was Warren Buffett first. I heard talk about it, and it's interesting how even zero point 0.1 can compound over time to, but zero compounds to nothing, right? But starting early is really so. My next question will be, exactly how can someone start? So, what are certain things that need to be true for someone to say, okay, yes, they can beat their chests to say, I have started planning for my retirement?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now, so basically, you start with that objective. That investment objective must very clear what you're trying to achieve. That sets a pace for every other thing that you will do. And afterwards, I think the time now comes to play. So, how many years do you even have, basically? So, if you are 45 and you're working towards 60, that tells you that you have 15 years. If you're 35, that tells you have 25 years. So already you've identified the time, the time required, the time frame, basically, required that you need or that you have, to plan accordingly. Again, it's also important to identify your risk appetite or your risk profile, basically, and when planning towards retirement, it's advised that you go for low risk instruments, low risk investments, and basically, so you identify the time you have, you identify the risk, your risk appetite, and that will inspire or determine the kind of instruments that you're even going to go into. So for a younger person who still has 2 or 3 decades to go, yes, you can venture more with some high risk instruments. You get my point. Compared to
Yeah.
someone that has less than 10 years thereabouts. For that baby boomer, you have to really, really be very. You have to manage your risk. You have to monitor your risk. We advise that you even play with low risk instruments. You don't need to touch the very volatile ones because of age, because of time. Because the younger person, even if it loses some part of the investment, he can afford to still go in. He can take the learnings and venture in again. But that is not the same for somebody who is older. And so those are all the things. So once you have set these parameters, then you now begin to engage. Of course, you engage a financial advisor, engage an expert. Basically, we're all experts in different areas. It is said that there are some people that you need in your life. Some professionals. You need a doctor. Everybody needs a doctor. You need a lawyer. You need a pastor. And
Yeah, yeah.
I dare to say that you need a financial advisor. Basically, you need someone to guide you. Show you stuffs, provide information, market intelligence. You need all of those things. I'm beginning to show you the options that are available. No one knows it all. There's no expert of it all. And so you need to leverage on knowledge around you. You need to leverage on expertise around you. Before you get into any form of investment. Then, of course, I will also stress the place of knowledge. You don't, by principle, we encourage that you don't invest in what you don't understand. You might not fully understand, but have that basic understanding. Basically, it's not magic. Yeah, basically, it's a there must be an underlining instrument to that investment. What's that fund be put into? What will the money be put into that will yield X returns? You get my point? So you need to
Yeah.
begin to ask questions, find out that, and basically, but today, of course, there are various investment instruments, that you can put your funds in, that will also compound year on year, basically, so it's like plotting a graph. So, for example, if I know that I need now, so a very simple scenario, what's currently your so you start with even what's your current monthly expense. From there you can now deduct your or deduce your annual expense. And that just provides that guidance onto what you require for retirement. So meaning at retirement, I'll still, depending, of course, you still have to, your expenses will not go away. Unfortunately, they might even increase.
Yeah.
So you need to look at investments that will yield that kind of how much you need even investment to such that the returns will cover for your overheads. You get my point now? You need to begin to work. So there's really some back end workings to derive what amount you need to have in investment, such that you will be free, be free to not to work aggressively again, basically. But broadly speaking, what are the things that will provide some form of comfortable returns for you? We look at the real estate space, beyond rental income. Yes, that's a sure one. Rental income. If you look at the stock market, and for the rental income, the property too is also appreciating, in value. Yes,
Yeah.
so it's a two-edged sword. Same for the capital market. There's dividend. In the stock market, there's dividend. You're getting dividend, and at the same time, the stocks is also appreciating. But of course, there's that delicateness whereby you need to be able to check the ratios, choose the right stocks, choose the right investment to put your funds in. We also have bonds. Bonds are long tenured instruments, that are issued for sovereigns or corporates, top corporates. They give you, there's a return. There are returns you get annually, usually twice a year, for the period of that bond. You can get bond for up to 10 years, and what that means is that every 6 months, yes, you get some returns, and at maturity, you get the principal, of the principal paid back. For some, the principal is also amortized, so it depends on the instrument, and all of that. So that gives you is that sure way of getting steady fixed income returns. So you have fixed income returns every 6 months, which comes to meet your expenses, while you have your capital preserved accordingly. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. I saw in all of this, you really didn't tilt towards savings. All right. So, where does savings play in this?
Okay. Thank you. Now, so well, I think savings is the starting point. Savings is the starting point, and so you start with savings, and once that savings has come or is substantial, we expect that you now invest it, accordingly in good instrument, in safe instruments, basically. So it starts with savings, because if you are not able to save, we talk about, there's always that issue around savings. Oh, what I'm earning today is not enough. Unfortunately, it will never be enough. So you need to just find a way to solve that. I don't think that really can be overflogged. Basically, I know that yes, inflation is high, cost of living is is over the roof. Yes, we know this obvious things, but we need to just find a way to live within a means, and two simple ways. First is to increase your earnings. You can increase your earning abilities. Yes, basically, there's nowhere where it's written that you should have only one source of income. So nothing constrains on to one source of income. So you need to solve that problem one way or the other, of course, legitimately. And the other leg is to now manage your overheads. Basically, if you cannot afford it today, you will be able to afford it tomorrow if you are able to invest wisely. There is that place of delayed gratification. I know for some people don't like to hear this, but it's just the truth. If I can't travel every summer now, maybe if I'm able to apply my investment effectively, maybe in the next 5 years, I'll be ready to do that. Basically, it's about the delayed gratification. It's written nowhere that I've traveled every year. That's the truth. But if I'm not able to afford it today, with smart savings and smart investment with the right culture, I believe I can, get over that in no long time. Yeah, so that's really the place of savings. It starts with savings. Savings requires a lot of discipline, but for you to maximize your returns, you cannot leave it in savings. Globally, the savings account, it really do not give you any real yield like that. You get just single digits, 3, 4, 5%, and when it's going to take that to compound, it's going to take forever, basically, and that's why it's important to move towards investment. And a very simple one around here is we have a mutual funds. So today with a mutual fund, you need to just leverage. Now, inflation is high, so because of that, interest rate is also high on investment. So today the average mutual fund, with the qualified and certified fund managers, you can get up to 20%. And a number of these guys already even have digital solutions, basically, for the onboarding, for monitoring and everything, transparent platforms. And so just do your basic research. You're going to get some good ones around, and you imagine you get 20% every year. Of course, we expect rates to begin to drop, but in the immediate, rates are still high. So why not leverage it? That's even the starting point. And for the mutual funds, you can withdraw in less than 48 hours. For some of them, 24 hours, 48 hours, you can withdraw your funds, and that's not even too late for any emergency or anyone basically. So instead of leaving your money in savings account, I will advise put it in mutual funds. That way it's yielding something tangible as against the typical savings account.
Ah, awesome, awesome. So for someone who wants to maybe start implementing this end of September, just for example, is there sort of like a framework the person can use? So you've spoken about looking at your income, looking at your expenses. So how do I know? So let's say, for example, I earn 100,000 naira every month, and my expenses are around maybe 50k, right? The remaining 50k, most times they just go into many things, right? Family and all of that. Is there sort of a framework that makes sense in determining, okay, what percentage I save, and then at what point, where should the savings get to that I can put it into investment or I can start immediately? Is there any framework of that sort?
Thank you very much. Now, there's a book I read number many years ago, and it's a popular book, and it's called The Richest Man in
Mm,
Babylon. And I'm very sure you've read
yeah.
it too. And it's just a very simple book that really emphasized the place of savings, that savings culture. And it talked about the ability to pay yourself. That even when you buy clothes, when you buy food, you are literally paying the food seller. You're paying the clothes seller because from what they've sold to you, they've made the profit which they will use for themselves and their families. You are literally not paid yourself. You only pay yourself when you save. And that's really a brilliant proposal. I
Yeah.
believe basically. So we advise that for savings, no matter what you earn, um, at least a 10% savings. So I advise between 10 and 20%. So for that guy who earns 100K, um, try to save between 10,000 naira to 20,000 naira. Yes, I know. Yeah, we know it's not going to be easy because even the 100K is not
All
enough for
right.
you to
Yeah.
start. So same the 80 will usually also not be enough, but you need to just be able to live within your means and save first, and begin to cultivate that savings culture accordingly. And today you have, instead of putting the funds away in the savings account, I will advise you open a mutual fund account today. Open a mutual fund account today. You can open one for as little as 5,000 naira. So basically, yeah, exactly. So everybody, so today we have students who have mutual fund account. We have money market fund accounts depending on the fund that really takes your interest. With that, these are 5,000, 10,000 naira you open one. So let the person open one today, virtually. You don't even need to leave the comfort of your house. You can get on the app, get on board and do your funding accordingly. For most of them, there's a minimum holding period of 30 to, depending, varies between 30 to 6 months, whereby you'll not be able to withdraw, except you charge some penalty. I think that's also some discipline, basically,
Yeah.
and helps you to just leave the money there, and you can make it a recurring debit. So every month the 10K just goes from your account into that place. I'm sure by the end of 1 year, by the time you're looking at it, you're even going to be happy and proud of yourself. And that is how it just begins to compound, just begins to build, it just begins to build. And I've seen from experience that when you have some things in, when you have some savings or investment, um, when you it puts you in a position to take advantage of opportunities as they appear. Because opportunities usually will come up, but if you don't even have the basic step, it's really going to be tough to see them. You won't even see the opportunity, unfortunately, because you're at zero. But if you have some level of funding, then that begins opportunities. Okay, so if I'm currently earning 20% returns, okay, this investment promises, I mean, safe investment, maybe I can get up to 30, 40. But it's because you already have, some form of savings that has attracted these opportunities your way. So that's really the basic. Start with savings between 10 and 20%. Spend the rest while you now begin to aspire to earn more. And once you're able to earn more, the savings thing becomes a culture thing for you. so it becomes part of you. And we talk about that emergency fund. Maybe I should touch on that now.
Mm.
Basically, because the year 2020 there was COVID, we all did not see COVID. Basically,
All right.
it just eat us like that. But there were people who for 6 weeks could not earn, and these were people that were earning daily. So you can imagine. So you wonder how they survived that period. Whereby you couldn't earn for six weeks. I mean, for salary earners, you didn't feel it. Your salaries came in, and all. But for that guy that needed to also daily to make money for 6 weeks, they were just at home, no income and all that. And so we also have people that lost their jobs during that period.
True.
Some, companies needed to downsize because they were not open. Some roles were not required any longer. And for times like that, it's just important to have some form of cushion, that just helps in seasons like that. There are life is full of seasons, ups and downs, and that is why you need that cushion to support in those low times. So it's recommended that in your emergency fund you have at least 6 months expense of yours put away in that place. And remember, like we said, the minimum you are required to do to put your fund it's a mutual fund. That's the minimum that you should do, as a smart investor. So if your monthly expense is 500k, and that's why it's also important to even know your monthly expense, and all that. So if you are paying, so it start from there too. If you are paying rent for a year, most in this part of the world we pay rent annually, and so for you to know what that is, divided by 12 to know what that comes to monthly. We also pay school fees for parents. We pay school fees timely, and that's every 4 months. So you divide that by four, and just to have an idea of how much your monthly expenses, how much you even require, on a monthly basis to live this standard of life that you currently have. Now multiply that by 6. That's the amount you should have an emergency fund. So if it's 500k, all you spend on rent, food, feeding, accommodation, transport, logistics, everything, education, a recharge card, all of that. Put it together. If it comes to 500k, for example, so that means you need at least about 3 million in your emergency fund. It just helps for that time, maybe another COVID, which we don't pray for.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Wow, profound. A lot of pure gold material has been discussed in the last 15 minutes, right? I know that many believers many religious believers, right, do not believe in emergency funds, but when COVID came, they now got an understanding of what it meant to have emergency funds. So fantastic. So I want you to now help listeners or viewers to move from the safe investment. So now let me put it in perspective. So I'm the guy earning that 100k. I've been saving 20% as you've advised. I decided to stretch myself to save 20%, and I've been able to save up to 1.2, right, using mutual funds over a how long will it take? That's like, oh, that's a lot of time. Okay.
That's like 10 years.
Oh, man, if you're earning 100k, please upskill, right? And leave there quickly. So let me now go to someone who is maybe putting away 100k every month, right? At the end of a 12-month period, that's like 1.2. If I have been able to save 1.2, using one of the safest instruments, as you have advised, which is mutual funds, and I really now want to get aggressive, what sort of instruments are there that I can take advantage of?
Thank you very much for this question. Okay, so you have something substantial and 1.2 million, and you're looking at what to put into. Now, I'll have to go back to what I said earlier about your risk profile. So that determines what's next you can do. If you are the high risk kind of person, you can now begin to look at the stock market. Even though you can still play in that space with something lower than that, basically. But of course, the stock market just requires it's higher risk, but you can double that 1.2 million, and that's the fact. That 1.2 million can be doubled if you're able to analyze and get the right stock, the timing, and all of that. You get into it, you can double that in that 1 year, or even triple. Basically, we've had that happen in recent times. A lot is happening over the last 3 years or so, we've seen a lot of movements, positive movement in our stock market. Even as the naira devalued, a lot of those stocks also adjusted for that devaluation. But not all of them have adjusted yet. So it's important to begin to monitor, and look at those um, solid stocks. Stocks that pay dividends, stocks with solid fundamentals and all, basically. So that might be a good time to do that. And you can also consider bonds. You
Okay.
can also consider bonds. Even though for bonds and commercial papers, there's usually a minimum of 5 million, for that. But there are platforms today that aggregate the funds. You get my point. So there are the platforms today that aggregate the funds. So even if you found 5 million, you can aggregate your 1 million with somebody else's 1 million, and that is invested accordingly. You can do your research and identify such platforms, to do that. Basically, it's because at that stage, there are now a typical bond today you can get as high as for a CP is a commercial paper, you can get up to 25 currently. Yes, 25 in returns. For a bond, it's for longer period, and you can currently it's about 20-ish. 20-ish, but the good thing is that you are locked in. So you're locking for the next 5-7 years, that gives you that sustained returns. Yeah, why? Because the mutual fund returns is likely expected to drop even as inflation is dropping. We expect the returns to also drop, in the corresponding manner, basically. But if you have logged in for a longer period with a bond, you're better off. If you know what I mean, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I will recommend. At that point, to begin to look at other ones. Then maybe it's also not a bad time to begin to diversify into other currencies. So we also have dollar mutual funds. So there are also dollar mutual funds. And you can start with as little as $100 for some of them, $50, $100. Basically, what that does is that it helps to provide that stability to your investment. So in the event of another naira devaluation, you are better off. Basically, you're even richer. When there's another once there's another naira devaluation. Why? Because if you're bringing that money back to naira, you will usually get more naira for that initial dollar position of yours.
As you were speaking, I just remembered an investor. I was watching a video recently on YouTube, and an investor was talking about a billionaire in naira, right? And when the naira was devalued, he came he came weeping, right? And he was advising the guy then to invest in dollars and all, but he chose to stick with naira, and then he came. So I think that's also a very, very, very smart move. All right, amazing. So my next question will be around what are certain mistakes that you've seen that people take to jeopardize their retirement goals. But before I ask that, um, okay, maybe we'll take this first, then we'll take the next question that was coming to my mind. So, are there certain mistakes that people make, right? And especially in our climbs, many people don't talk about this as much as they should, but I know that I listen to a lot of foreign investors, Warren Buffett especially, and he speaks about, invest, leave it there, and continue your life. Right? Because the more you keep checking, there's every tendency that you'll stretch your hand and either liquidate or do stuff. So, especially in relation to Nigeria, are there certain mistakes that you've seen that people have taken to jeopardize their retirement goals?
Thank you very much. Yes. So while growing up, I recall that my dad, he had worked in the finance space, and he had a decent job, and but he had an early retirement,
Mm.
fairly early. Yes, it was in his mid 50s or so. So I think he had expected he was going to touch 60 before retirement, but it came 5 years earlier, and he was not ready for it, unfortunately. Yes, and of course, so I saw that afterwards he struggled. He tried to get into business. He invested his gratuity. That's the fund they pay you at retirement, and it was quite substantial. So he just poured everything into business, and unfortunately, that business did not work I mean, everything went down. We saw it. I mean, it was very pathetic. We saw it was agriculture, and we saw poultry. It
Wow.
was poultry. Put it in poultry, and we saw birds die. I mean, they die. We saw it was also a fish pond. We saw fishes dried up and all of that. Because it was just not ready, fortunately. And maybe so that's to a large extent. I know you have to take learnings from the people that have gone ahead of you. So for me, that's very clear that I need to avoid this from happening to me. And I still see a lot of my age mates, younger people who still live this way. We think that that income is going to come forever. Some people just feel that we can wink it when we get there, we'll cross that bridge. No, but it's too much to gamble our lives, basically. Because even venturing into business is not a bed of roses. It requires a lot of experience, research, and all. You need it's really a whole lot. It's not something. It's not like a light bulb you just switch on and off. Basically, no. There's a lot required. And if you're not in that space, if you're not familiar to that terrain, it's really going to be tough. And it's not at retirement you want to gamble with that gratuity that you have been paid. That's too much risk. Basically, that's too much risk to. It's better that you had even attempted this business while in paid employment or
True.
something, and not waiting until when that becomes your last card,
Yeah, like
basically.
still early.
So exactly. So people try to wink it, people just try to wish it have engage with people, and I ask that question. So what do you see? Basically, and by the time you show them the workings, that this is what you require, and for you to get here, you need to begin to put aside this particular amount, and the average guy just shuts down. So you know what, guys, when we get there, we get there. That kind of thing. When we get there, we'll cross that bridge. I really don't know, and maybe the thinking is we open for that one break,
Mm.
open for that one break whereby you just make a 300 million and all of that.
Nigerian dream. It will blow one day.
Exactly, the Nigerian dream. Just waiting that someday, you're just going to get one contract and just going to hammer 300 million. Yes, that does happen, but not to everybody. That's
True.
not that's a miracle. It's not a principle. So you need to
Mm.
be able to walk the principles. Why do you want to live your life on the edge? Why do you want to live your life to chance? Hoping that one supernatural thing will happen and you just, no, no, no. That's not how to live our lives as wise men and women. We've got to craft a plan and begin to implement accordingly.
Mm. Wow, fantastic, fantastic. That because I most definitely saw my dad make the same mistake too. Not necessarily in business, but he actually thought gratuity will be something very substantial that will take him through. But nah, it doesn't work that way. So fantastic, thank you so much. In fact, what I was going to ask was your thoughts about this gratuity bit, and you delved into it. So I know there will be a 50-year-old, 40-year-old. Are there specific advice that you can give to them? And of course, pure advice. So they choose to take it good, they choose not to take it, it's also fine. Because I know the first thought that they'll have now is, I'm out of time, right? I have about 5 years. What can they put in place to cushion the effect of their mistakes of not, planning for retirement early?
Thank you very much for this. I recall a senior colleague who sometimes retired few years ago, and so I mean first level. So I saw his pension basically, and so the pension was about, so there was this monthly. So at retirement you get it got a chunk, at retirement he got a chunk about, I think, between 25 and 50% of his RSA, the retirement savings that he's had. He got about 25 to 30% or 50% of that, as a chunk, for him to invest. That's what represents a gratuity that our parents had then, basically, and apart from that, you now begin to get a payment. That's a pension payment every month till death, and that came to about 20% of his last salary. So his last salary as a staff, his pension guaranteed was about 20%. So to that, basically. So that's, I said all this to tell you that, so you will, from your pension, you likely only get 20% of your last salary.
Mm.
This is the same salary that is not enough, and the best you're going to get is just 20% of that money. So just for you to know, that pension will obviously not take you home.
Yeah.
and that for that person who has really who is out of time at this point, I think you just need to be very aggressive. You just need to be very aggressive. Yes, while you also managing risk, you just need to be very aggressive. With that, with the options. I also don't think that retirement should represent a season whereby you just cross your legs and you are reading newspapers and all of that. You get my point. You should, and that is part of the vision for retirement. So, what do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself? So, there's also the possibility people still make money even in retirement, and that's the beauty. So what we're talking about here is about retirement lifestyle. So people can still there's still things you can do to make money. There's still things you can do on the part time. For somebody, maybe it's lecturing, on the part time. So it is not the aggressive 9 to 5 kind of thing, but there are things you can do. Somebody can still be making money online. Somebody can. There's still services you can provide by the site. But of course, even though it really cannot be like aggressive. So maybe that's something that person should look at. Begin to look for other things in which you can do, even in retirement, basically. But retirement should not represent a closure for life. You still look at other ways in which you can add value, and of course, check for aggressive investment, even as you manage your risk effectively. Yes.
Wow, awesome. In fact, as you're speaking, about doing something on the side, it just crossed my mind that it may be an excellent time to monetize their experience, right? So, of course, they must have worked for a long time, and there's a generation behind that they have a lot of experience that they can turn maybe into a course, into a book, and just put it out there at a cost. It has to be very smart so that they don't now become, exhausted from working, all of that. Amazing, amazing advice. So, um, and this is like the final question because we spent quite some time, right? So is there an advice or set of advices that you can give, especially, you've said a lot, especially to the young generation, for the Gen Z's, there's still time ahead, quote and unquote, right? Time is fleeting, so there's still some time, right, that they can take advantage of. For the millennials, okay, still fair, maybe a 20-year period before, or 30 or 15 before they retire. So considering these three groups, so the Gen Zs, the millennials, and the baby boomers, um, any final words on retirement that you can give? Just general advice to capture this all. Yeah.
Mm. Okay. Thank you very much. Final words. It will be start with start now. Start with an objective. It's better late than never. Basically, yeah. Start with an objective. Start with the picture, and seek information. Chase after knowledge. What you just said is very very important. You can think of floating a consultancy firm. Whereby you're rendering consultancy services. I think that's one of the things I see myself doing in retirement. Trainings, facilitating, and all of that. Basically, because these are things that come to me naturally. Then again, based on the world of experience that one has also gathered or garnered, it's important to now give that back at a fee, basically. So yeah, so start with an objective. Yes, even if time is against you, it's better late than never. Be the be take full charge, take full control, be intentional, be deliberate. We need to. They say that time flies, but it's up to you to be the pilot. So try to make the best use of the time. Just do what you have to do now. Yeah, thank you very much.
All right. This has been such a fantastic session. In fact, I think this session should even be monetized, but well, we'll give, right?
Very
We'll,
soon.
we'll give, yes, yes, because I have taken personally, I have taken, some action points. I have to go sit down and really examine what my expenses are, right? I have a fair idea, but I don't think it's if we really need to be serious, we shouldn't be looking for fair. We should look for exact so that we can calculate what our 6 month emergency fund is, and then start saving and also start investing. A lot has been said that we can distill into action points, and I want to say a very big thank you, Mr. Abiodun, for joining us today. This has been insightful, and I'm sure all our listeners and viewers all over the world will enjoy the content that we have produced. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Dario of a Young Father. Thank you for having me. It's really been great being here. Thank you.
amazing.
Great.
Hopefully, we'll have you again soon, right? So, thank you. Thank you
Anytime.
so much. All right. All
Yes.
right. All right. Bye, everyone. See you.